Today is Thursday, May 1st, 2025. It's 5 p.m. and I would like to call to order the Town Council meeting of Bowling Green. Would everyone please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will now take a roll call. Ms. Davis. Here. Mr. Voigt.
Here.
Mr. Webb.
Here.
Dr. Chenault.
Here.
Vice Mayor Coyle. Here. Mr. Stork.
Here.
Mr. Hageman.
Here.
We have a quorum and we have a full council tonight. First item on the agenda is the consent agenda, the regular meeting minutes. Have all of you had an opportunity to look those over? Yes, no?
I make a motion that we approve the minutes from the April 3rd meeting.
Second.
I have a motion from Councilman Stork, a second from Councilman Voigt. Is there any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Next section is public comment. When we open up the podium, please come up, state your name, your address, at which time you have 3 minutes to speak. You will address the chair, not the council. Please know that our rules do not allow for us to respond to your comments, but that what you have to say is very important to us. We are listening and we are taking notes. I now open public comment.
Mayor, we have one signed up for public comment, Ms. Angela Smith.
Good evening, council members, mayor, town manager, and town staff. Hello, I'm Angela Smith, owner and operator of Your Just Desserts, located on 120 North Main Street in Bowling Green, Virginia. I am asking for your consideration in hosting a town hall meeting for the residents, business owners, and property owners of Bowling Green, Virginia, to inform everyone of the town's infrastructure maintenance plan. At this time, misinformation, rumors, and hearsay are what residents are relying on as credible information. A town hall meeting 2 weeks out from the start of the project would give everyone an idea of the scope of the project at this stage, where the team will begin even working, and a path to completion. I know everyone on town council and town staff have been working diligently, resourcing contractors, partnering with VDOT, and so much more that we can only imagine. And all these parts are moving and fluctuate daily, if not by the minute. Thank you for considering this suggestion.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Is there anyone else coming up for public comment? I have received a public comment via email. My name is Linda Keith. My husband and I own DK Firearms at 202 North Main Street, Bowling Green, Virginia, 22427. Over the last month and a half, we have had our larger entrance south blocked by a pump truck multiple times per day. We do not have an issue with this as it is temporary, and it needs to be done to alleviate the issues with the sewer system in town. We are an active business and have multiple customers coming in and out of our parking lot during business hours, 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. In addition to customers entering and leaving our parking lot, we have deliveries and pickups daily from FedEx, FedEx Ground, UPS, and USPS. Leaving our parking lot, we have delivery trucks and pickups daily. We also have occasional tractor trailer delivery. We also have a great deal of cars that like to use our parking lot to make illegal U-turns at all hours of the day. We have even had people making U-turns while cones are being placed and driving around the pump truck driver and in between the cones. Why these people are in such a rush in our small town, I do not know. When our south entrance is blocked by the pump truck, this creates an inconvenience for our delivery drivers, as they usually pull into one entrance and pull out the other. They drive large vehicles, and the small entrance north is difficult for them to use. But more importantly, vehicles turning left out of the north entrance have issues seeing northbound traffic because of the pump truck. Also, larger vehicles turning right have an issue with not being able to see northbound traffic as they pull out in the same direction as the pump truck. The pump truck partially blocks our south entrance and uses cones to block off the entrance completely. Recently, this problem has been compounded by the addition of a second truck that partially blocks our north entrance and creates an issue where customers and delivery drivers cannot get in or out of our parking lot safely. This also causes an issue in our parking lot for vehicles to safely navigate their way out of parking spots to open entrance. Our customers will sometimes spend several hours in our parking lot, and conditions are constantly changing while they are parked. Please communicate with your contractors to not park two vehicles in front of our location, as this creates a safety hazard for them and anyone entering or leaving our parking lot. Ideally, a single pump truck should be parked in between our south entrance and the entrance in front of the hotel next door. They can be parked along the curb with the back of their truck next to the lamppost, set up their cones in front of the entrance, and run a hose to the manhole. This will help this vehicle entering and exiting our town entrance, especially making a left turn out of our parking lot. When construction is to begin, there will be no staging in our parking lot. The parking situation is bad enough when our entrance is blocked. Adding large commercial vehicles or vehicles with trailers just randomly parking wherever they want, not in the parking spots, causes an issue to our customers and our delivery drivers. Please communicate this to your contractors, as we will tow any unauthorized vehicles in our parking lot. Sincerely, Linda Keith. This is to be entered into the town record. Any other comments? We will now close public comments. We'll now go to member comments. Ms. Davis? Mr. Voigt?
I guess only real briefly, just that we do have the clean sweep coming up on the 17th. And then also the Memorial Day service that should be on the courthouse lawn. That'll be Monday, May 22nd. That'll be at 10. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Webb? Dr. Chenault? Vice Mayor Coyle?
Yeah, just briefly, in reference to the BGP Gulf Agreement and partnership, I met with the President, Jeff. In reference to BGEP, I met with Jessica Biel last week, the week before, had a really great conversation, and she has advised that they have applied for a grant, and I am hopeful and pretty sure that they will get the grant to employ someone to put a mural on the building. I believe it's going to be Mark Bassoon's wall. Not sure who the person is that's going to do the artwork. But I just wanted to mention that I fully support what they're doing. And I think BGEP will do a great job revitalizing portions of the town.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Coyle. None. Mr. Eggman?
Yeah, Valerie, it is on Mark's building. It's the be the wall facing the ice cream parlor. That's what I understood, so.
Mr. Voigt, do you have any comments as our planning commissioner liaison?
Pretty much the same as last month. We started the talk on the tiny homes and everything, and iterate a little bit more about the planning of the comp plan amendments, revision. But where that is at this point is basically there's a lot of data that needs to be updated in the comp plan. So there's going to be a portion we get into our budget discussion about how to handle that from a council perspective, and then it'll go back to planning commission, and we'll actually get the work done.
Okay, thank you very much. Bowling Green Economic Partnership, I guess you just addressed that, correct? No, it's underneath. It's separate. Yeah, but those, I put them separate. It doesn't matter. Item number 2, the Bowling Green Police Department. Has everybody looked over Chief Cecil's report? Are there any questions for Chief Cecil at this time?
I get a quick one.
Go ahead.
Just wanted to, I saw the thanks that you got on social media for helping with the trailer at Susie Bella's. I just want to acknowledge thanks. Good job on getting that out of there. I know we're going to have a few encumbrances with dealing with the road shutdown, so thanks for being on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cecil.
You're welcome. Y'all have a good evening.
Next, we'll move on to the town manager's report. This time I'll turn the meeting over to Ms. India Adams Jacobs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Included in the report, you'll see some of the highlights of the activities over the last month. Obviously, we've been working diligently on the CIP plan, which has been evolving with our emergency issues that have popped up through town, as well as our operating budget, which I'll present today. The FY23 audit process is continuing. Auditors will be here on site tomorrow at 8:30, bright and early, ahead of normal schedule. So I will be here with them. We have executed a revised corrective action plan with VDH to better align with some of the grant opportunities that we've been successful in obtaining. Collaborated with VDOT for a communications fact sheet for our public. Specifically, they are standing up a webpage early for us at my request because we've been getting some questions as it relates to the Smart Scale project. So that will be added to our website, and then the formal fact sheet will be here in hard copy so that we can hand that out to our residents. Southern Software transition continues. Our scheduled go live date will be July 1. We are continuing to work with Keystone to gather reports and data for that system transition. I supported BGEP with grant writing assistance, pulled that grant together for completion and upload to DHCD's website or portal last Friday. Main Street sewer line repair project management is continuing. Courthouse now is a part of that. Continued to work with Moonshot Missions for sludge management analysis. As we know, our drying beds have been challenged and failed at this point. I provided information to a nonprofit through University of Maryland that has been helping us with our infrastructure challenges at the plant for PER, for sludge press. And that is all free work to the town that we've been working with University of Maryland on through collaboration with the state. And then we're working to finalize the grant tomorrow to address the mitigation efforts as it relates to the gross alpha. We also will be finalizing an internship program with Atlantic Union Bank for the Future Makers internship, where we won $4,000 to host an intern this summer. So we'll be interviewing for that next week. We obviously had our special meeting last week and our regular meeting this week, and then we'll discuss specific special meetings as it relates to the budget process. And will conclude my report.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any questions of the town manager from council? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 4, Public Works. We have Sean's report in front of us. Do any of you have any questions? Town manager. Mr. Fortune isn't here. This says that, 7 hydrants are out of service. Do you have the locations of those?
I do not have them on me at this time, but we can obtain those.
Okay, but we are actively, engaging in correcting those or fixing?
We are looking at a plan to figure out or ascertain what specifically is wrong with those specific hydrants, and then coming up with a plan to address those. Yes.
Thank you. And then, item number 9, it said the WTTP influent channel was cleaned out with a vacuum truck. Is that something we have, or is that something that we hired?
No, that's something where we hire a jet truck to come out and clean a line. So that's what I believe the vacuum truck is referring to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That makes me think of something. So 7 out of service. Do we have any kind of ballpark how many total we have?
I can get that information for you.
Okay, thanks.
Any other questions for the utility report, public works report, excuse me? All right, moving on, we'll go to community development report from Mr. LaRiviere.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, honorable council members. My report is included in your packet, and I'm here if you have any questions. Thank you.
Are there any questions from council at this time? Hearing none, we will move on to item number 6, the utilities report. And Jamie, are you coming up for that? Has everyone read their utility report? And are there any questions?
Okay. Good evening, everybody. I'm here to present the report for utilities for the wastewater plant and water. Nothing out of the ordinary to go over. Gross alpha is still high. There was a NOV just for miscommunication with VDH on the gross alpha reporting for March. They added in well number 1 for monitoring, but that has been addressed and we are working with VDH over that. That was a very recent change. Outside of that, everything was normal with water. Chlorine dosages are fine. Wells are running fine. And again, this is for March. We started tackling the dry bed issue that was tilled. It proved to be non-fruitful. So it was then, this past month, we dug into it a little bit. I'm going to go over that a little bit here. Still maintaining the equipment at the wastewater plants, alternating the clarifiers. All of the numbers for the month were great. And nothing to report on excursions. Any questions on that report?
The NOV, is there a fine incurred with that?
I don't have that information with me right now at this time, but I know our team is working with it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions from council? Thank you, Jamie.
I have the also dry bed information. I just wanted to separate.
Okay, go
since
ahead.
This is more focused.
Before you
So-
jump in, Jamie, I just want to clarify something from the last meeting. I think at our last meeting, someone from council asked us to follow up with the county administrator as it relates to the sludge letter that was sent. And I've been informed by their staff that there will be a presentation or a memo drafted by their Public Works and Utilities team for a presentation to their board at their May 13th meeting. So if council is interested in hearing that, I would suggest that 1 or 2 or more of you attend the board meeting looking at the county to hear what that result will be. And I'll be happy to invite Imboden's team to give comment as well if there's any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, India.
And then back to the sand drying beds. So we actually rented a mini excavator, or ascertained, I don't know if it was rented. And we came up and we dug into the sand drying beds and found that it was the wrong sand. The under drain was collapsed. The drainage going to the manhole behind the sand drying beds all of that piping was clogged. So that makes way more sense why there's the sand drying beds are very underperforming. So it's not able to drain through the sand correctly. So it is recommended to rehab at least a bed or two and see what kind of performance enhancement you may get. It will definitely get better. It can't get worse.
So this, I remember a while back hearing that we got the wrong sand. Is this the same wrong sand, or
This is the same. This is
we
not.
never corrected it? We're just reaffirming it's the wrong.
We are reaffirming that we were just trying to troubleshoot it and make sure
Yeah.
that is the problem. I mean, it's even more than that. It's not just wrong sand. I mean, on the picture, you can see clearly that the black pipes here in the picture, that's your under draining, and they are completely clogged with sand, rocks, pea gravel. So it's just collapsed. It just needs to be redone correctly.
So when was it we first found out that?
I thought that when the county was helping, we replaced stuff with the sand beds. Do you think that was the case like a year ago? I mean, before you got involved.
Because in that report,
I'm unfamiliar.
in that report, initial report of all the deficiencies, that was one of them that was like, hey, y'all got the wrong sand. And, oh, we got the wrong sand. And I thought we fixed it.
We did. And the county put the wrong sand back in it again. Period.
Potentially, like, I mean, our problem is we went August to about November of, I guess that'd be 23. And they came in here with their laundry list of everything that was wrong and everything we needed to do. Now, on our part, we basically just said, okay, do it, appropriate this, appropriate that. You know, we never actually got any kind of, you know, here's what we did back.
So maybe we didn't replace it.
Maybe not. I remember a couple months ago, I was like asking you all, hey, did you ever get a list from kind of thing of what was done? This isn't on you, obviously.
Yeah,
but-
I mean, I've heard some things here and there, but I'm not familiar. I have heard, this is unofficial, I don't, that the sand may have been Class A VDOT sand, which would be made for compaction, not drainage.
So it would have been a big deal to dispose of the wrong sand, wouldn't it?
It wouldn't have been a big deal to dispose of the wrong sand. It's a bigger deal to not put the right sand back in there.
Right. How can we find out if that was done or not?
And did we get billed for that?
Please raise your hands. Did we get billed for it?
So I think this occurred prior to his arrival and my arrival, but we can go back and take a look. For purposes of tonight, because I mentioned it at the special meeting, I just wanted you all to have this information. Mark Imboden, the CEO, is going to come with a full recommendation and a cost to repair the current situation at our June meeting. But I can work with him so that in that preparation, he can do a bit of an investigation and give you all some of those answers. But I do believe they were reconditioned or repaired at some point in 2023 by the previous operator.
Jamie, what is the life expectancy of a drying bed?
Generally speaking, if you till them up and take care of the sand, it's just you want to keep a pile on the side and just keep putting sand down. And what happens is over time, as you pull sludge off of it, you are going to take some sand with you, which is expected. But if you don't keep putting sand back on the bed, eventually you'll get down to the media that is under the sand.
Correct.
And then you start creating damage, and then you start moving rocks, pebbles, and other such things into the underdrain. I am not sure if that's what happened here, but clearly the underdrain was collapsed and effectively cannot drain.
So you replace the sand periodically. Is a virtue of maintenance? Because I would think by virtue of how the drying beds work, they're supposed to clog eventually. If they don't, they're not necessarily doing their job because they're a filter. So that is something that is included in your maintenance. Is that what I'm to understand?
Yeah, so as you put the sludge down, yes, it's going to separate the solids from the water. And the solids are going to stick to the sand, and you cannot prevent taking some sand with you.
Right.
But if you take care of those sand drying beds correctly, then, changing the sand out is not really something you should have to do very frequently. You should just have to add some back to it here and there.
What's very frequently, biannually, annually?
I mean, it really depends on, I've been at wastewater plants where they use them religiously like you guys have, and I've been at plants where they don't use them hardly at all. It really depends on how well they're taken care of. I know the guys, when they pull the sludge off of the sand, they do a good job of putting the sand back. But right now it's it's not an operational thing. It's more of a refurbishing, getting it back to spec thing.
All right. Okay, thank you. Any other questions from council?
Madam Mayor, I think to answer your specific question, I think industry best practice is every 10 years to fully recondition.
Thank you, India.
Just so I have it in my head, you're going to investigate when it was done, we know by whom it was done, and what was the end result.
Correct, to the best of our ability.
Okay, I have another question.
Go ahead. Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Jamie. Next, we will move on to item number 7 on the agenda, and that is the town code update. And at this time, I will turn the floor over to the town manager.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Not so long after our initial strategic planning retreat in January, I reached out to Civic Plus, our provider who worked on the initial recodification probably 4 or 5 years ago, reached out to them to see what it would take to begin kind of re-engaging that process to clean up the renumbering and so that we can have an outward facing, easier to read, easier to reference code. As I think we mentioned at the retreat, that it was a priority so that we could work to get that in the upcoming year so that we could have that for both staff and the public. We worked with our attorney, and I think he was on the call with us at least once to talk through that. And we've worked with Civic Plus, and they have agreed to start this process and clean this process up for $1,800. And so we are asking authorization to go ahead and re-engage them for that process and start the process of cleaning our town code up.
Are there any questions, Jeff?
Was there anything that they actually completed the last time when we got into the talks with them? Like, what have they done thus far?
They started with all of the items that was presented to them and given to them from prior administrations. We've been going through the ordinance changes since then and just shared with them what they were as part of the process for them to get us a quote. So they did complete a substantial amount of the work before. I just think it got lost somewhere in the transitions of administrations and staff.
Okay.
I will say that there had never been any staff logins created, which leads me to believe the work got completed by them and maybe handed off via email into oblivion. And so because there was no staff logins created and ever established, it didn't appear that any staff ever logged into it to even do the ongoing maintenance, which was the plan at the time.
That makes some sense. This is a very reasonable cost. Is this going to be able to roll in that ordinance page thing that we had is this just going to take care of the code book itself, or are we going to get the ordinances, all those ordinance updates rolled into it as well?
Yes.
Oh, I definitely would like to do that, but had something to say.
Ms. Davis.
I move that the council authorize the town manager to direct Civic Plus to execute the renumbering and reorganization of the town code.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Councilwoman Davis, and I have a second by Councilman Voigt. Is there any further discussion? Mr. Webb, I saw you had a question a minute ago. Okay, any further discussion? Go ahead.
JC, I brought this up to Andy the other day, passing on the sidewalk, but can you check the town code to see what animals are allowed in town?
Certainly.
I told them they
Thanks, JC.
Okay. We have a motion on the table. If there's no further discussion, I would like to take a roll call for this one. Ms. Davis? Mr. Voigt? Mr. Webb?
Yes.
Dr. Chenault?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coyle?
Yes.
Mr. Stork?
Yes.
Mr. Hageman?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously. Next is item number 8 on our agenda. Request for approval of financial consulting services. Have all of you read through this? And at this time, I will turn this over to the town manager, and please raise your hands if you have questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As you know, we've been working as a priority to improve financial management and the backlog of the town audits. In the last year and a half, we've completed 2, when in the prior 5 years, none had been completed. We are working to complete FY23. In the past year, we've had various consultants from the Berkeley Group to trying to work with Rutherford Moss, but after they saw the condition of the town's operations at the time, chose to walk away from those that work that had been planned. So looking to formally work with Color Your Money LLC, who has been helping the town off and on for various bank reconciliations, audit preparations, and audit financial services over the past 2 to 3 years, even prior to my arrival as town manager, but want to formally get this for the next fiscal year process. And then if we get caught up with both audits, then look to possibly reduce this in the future.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Questions from council? Hearing none.
No,
Is
I
there-
had some stuff. I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead.
With this one, so that this request, so trying to bounce off how you're explaining there. Does this mean that this cost here is the encapsulation of what it's going to cost to do our other audits, or is this in a vacuum, or how does this relate to other director level positions and stuff like that?
This is approximately the cost for the items outlaid here: bank reconciliations, audit preparations, and financial services.
Okay, so we wouldn't have like another consultant to also do the audit, or like, are we going to be paying, like when we get, if these people work on the audit, are we going to end up with other firms coming in like RFCA again or something like that for presentation parts, or is there going to be additional cost for these audits beyond
There's
this?
pre-audit work and then there's audit work. Auditors can't do the pre-audit work because they can't audit themselves.
Right.
So I just want to make sure we differentiate
No,
that nuance.
Yeah, I
So
forgot that.
RFCA is still going to be a separate line item for the audit cost there, which we're budgeting for. And then the pre-audit services / CPA services, I think how it was known before, is a separate line item. So I hope that clarifies that.
Yeah, I think that does. It's just, this is a decent number, good chunk of change here, and it's not fully in isolation. You know, we have a lot of, our finance office, we're still, we're in an interim, finance director right now, so we're going to be still, I assume that's still out for people to get towards, and so spending a lot of money on consultants add up is all I'm really saying. And so
Absolutely.
we just have to be wary for whatever the next thing to come in is. That's all. I don't. Okay.
Sure. I can add some context to that if you like. I think when I started, we had the Berkeley Group on. Berkeley Group has sort of changed their business model, and some of their prior consultants have gone on to be permanent finance directors in much larger places. And so we really don't have many options to work with Berkeley on a more interim basis to help with those sort of pre-audit services. The other pre-audit firm that I mentioned, Rother Moss, was in line to help us. But when they came in and saw the condition of the disparate systems that they had, basically walked away from the work. So in short, I don't know that we have many options to continue the work and the progress that we're making on our audits, which I think we're all happy with the progress that we're making. And just so that people are aware, if we do not have audits completed, we're not able to go out and get state funded, whether it's grants or loans or issue debt. And we will not have as much of a favorable position in the market, which Davenport is here, and I'll let him to add on that later if there's a question, to go out for any debt funding as we have emergencies. So pretty much without audits, we are really hampered to do anything else. But I do agree with you, consultants add up, and I would love for us not to be in that position, but that's just not where we are yet.
Oh,
But
yeah.
we are making progress.
Yeah, no, that's good. Great explanation, everything. It's not like I'm trying to say no. It's just like, oh, big number. Okay, breathe. All right, there we are.
Best case scenario, how long is it going to take us to get caught up on all of our audits so that we are just back to our office staff without all this additional expense? I mean, and I know I'm not going to hold you to it, but it's fluid. I understand that, and you keep finding more issues in the office as the audits come up. But what is your kind of a best guesstimation?
Well, I don't necessarily have a best guesstimation. I'm sure that's not the answer that you'd like. But when we had one of our previous consultants in here from Berkeley, they said if it took as long as it took to get messed up, it could take up to 6 years to get it fixed. And I know people probably won't want to hear that. We are a year and a half in and 2 audits in. So I would, at this current pace, probably say somewhere towards 2027.
So the audits were for 21 through the present, basically. And you came in 24.
January 1st of 2020 or 2nd of 2024.
And so half of that year was under your jurisdiction, so to speak, your purview. And hopefully the goal was that things were going to start getting entered properly. So I guess what I'm asking is, once you get up to fiscal year 2024, I would think the audits after that would be easier because your staff has been, it's been indicated to us, you have been entering stuff correctly.
We have been improving based on the systems that we have in place, none of which are 100% reliable because they were never implemented properly. So I won't go on record saying that just because I started in January or even by June, that things will be perfect, because there have been 2 systems. The goal is to try to get on one system of record that we're working through with our auditors that we can definitively rely on moving forward. But also, I do think we need to be honest in it as it relates to, if I started in January of 24, I didn't get really staffing until mid-year.
Correct.
And so then there was still a bit of time where we were still uncovering, investigating, all while still trying to do day-to-day and pick up on the 4 or 5 year backlog of audits. So I just want to make sure we're having realistic expectations for where we were, where we are, and where we're headed, and at a reasonable time frame with the staff that we have, and having gone through at least a finance director transition during that time as well. So we were making great progress. Had a little bit of hiccup at the beginning of this year, and so that will take us a little bit of time to catch up even from that. So,
okay, Mr.
So
Stork.
India, so are we still like actively looking for a finance director, or is this contract going to just kind of be instead of that?
No, this is we've had pre-audit services in place, and we still are going to have to find a finance director for the day-to-day and to continue the catch up from the year's backlog.
And where are we in that process of finding?
I'm working as quickly as possible. I had to put that a little bit to the back burner as we've been dealing with emergencies.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions from council? Mr. Voigt?
Okay. Yeah, to to go off what you were, just saying about like when you started, like we're still talking about Southern Software rolling out next month. Like we're still not there on the entering side. But I want to ask as a refresher with this, with you saying people walked away. Last when we had the last audit presentation, like we were guessing at like when the next audit would be done, and there was some inkling of maybe first of the year, maybe into the summer. Has that, if we're changing who's going to be like involved in things, is that going to get extended, or we anywhere kind of near that same kind of ballpark, or we're starting over again?
We're moving as fast as we can. I will say the auditors will be here tomorrow. And so based on their field work, they will probably give me a projected timeline on what it will take for them to complete 2023. And then after we finish 2023, we will continue with 2024. But I also think we just have to also be realistic that as much as we want to do this fast, we are simultaneously also burning people out if we push too fast and too hard, particularly for work that usually most local governments do one of these a year. And so we've done 2 of these in 1 year. And that is a lot of strain on staff and including myself, in addition to the other items that have come down the pipe that we have not planned for. So I'm going to do our best to move as fast as we can, but we can't kill our staff in the process.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council? Well, the town manager has requested an approval for this financial consulting services. Is there a motion for that?
I motion the town council approve the procurement and financial services for the fiscal year 26 and authorize the town manager to execute an agreement for those services with CYM LLC.
I have a motion from Councilman Hagman. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Vice Mayor Coyle. Is there any further discussion? I will take a roll call for this. Mr. Hagman,
Yes.
Mr. Stork,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coyle,
Yes.
Dr. Chenault,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Voigt,
Yes.
Ms. Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda, item number 9. We have the fiscal year 2026 proposed budget presentation. And at this time, I will turn the meeting over to our town manager. Oh, are we getting a slideshow with this? Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of council, Indy Adams Jacobs, town manager. I'll be presenting the proposed FY 2026 budget. So first, we'll start with the table of contents. Similar to last year, we'll go with the fiscal year 26 proposed budget, high level overview of what the town funds, our budget process, our strategic plan alignment, budget priorities, financials, and the proposed budget timeline, and then next steps. So recap from our strategic planning session, and for members of the public, the town's mission is simple, and that's to serve the citizens. The town vision, which was established last year again, is to create a vibrant, lively, thriving community that's sustainable and resilient, connected regionally, walkable with connected neighborhoods, a destination for visitors, a small town vibe, and a village with historic charm to serve as a cultural and business center for Caroline County with beautiful public spaces and streetscapes. In the town vision, that's to maintain land use control, maintain public utilities, public safety, attractive physical assets, amenities and parks, independence and self-government, a sense of community, location of services, commerce, culture, and solid waste collection. Our values and operating principles are listed there, which include transparency, communications, good customer service, honesty, integrity, sound financial management, follow-through, staff development, welcoming, that we are facilitative, creative, innovative, that we are efficient and effective, and that we maintain trust. What the town funds: we as a town provide public safety, including police, that's staffing, vehicles, equipment, building expenses. Under infrastructure, public works and utilities, that's wastewater, staff, vehicles, equipment, water, public works. Administration, which includes staff, audit, budget preparation, legal, day-to-day operations, government performance, that's information technology software, staff development, economic development, and tourism includes Harvest Festival, Music on the Green, and tourism. The budget process, we, as a local government in Virginia, operate our budget from July 1 to June 30th. That's our fiscal year. Unlike some other governments, our budget must be balanced and needs to include contributions to capital reserves. We have two funds that are featured in our budget. So we have our general funds and then our enterprise funds, which are fees from services, our utilities funds. Our budget priorities, highlighted from our previous staff retreats, which include utilities, excellent town staff, economic development, smart growth, vibrant downtown, government performance, financial management, county relations. And I will now hand it over to Ted from Davenport to talk a little bit about our reassessment and equalization process.
Welcome, Ted.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. Somebody have the... All right. Some of you all may remember myself or my colleagues. We've presented overviews on both the general fund financial trends and position, as well as water sewer, back in January, more recently in early March. And then we've had some conversations within the last couple of weeks. Keep in mind, I know it's all too familiar to you all, we're working off of audited FY22 numbers, right? So there's not a 23 or 24. For 23 and 24, we're working with, excerpts from the financial software and sort of doing the best that we can with that information. The key takeaways from those earlier presentations on the general fund was that expenditures in many cases are growing and outpacing growth in revenues. And reserve levels have deteriorated a bit. Keep in mind that's through FY22. And our general takeaway was that we believe that it's worthwhile for the town to consider raising general fund revenues. Your primary sources of revenue are your real property tax, and that revenue's been relatively flat over the last few years. Bank stock tax revenue and meals tax revenue, and those have been growing and I think providing a bit of a buffer. But those three sources of revenue are, the lion's share of your revenue growth. And one of the conversations we've had is to consider increasing the tax rate to generate additional revenue and have a greater diversification, maybe a little less reliance on bank stock tax revenue and meals tax revenue, which are a bit more cyclical and move a little bit more with as the economy ebbs and flows. And we're going to talk a little bit about that tax revenue growth consideration. On the water and sewer side, similar process, looking at historical trends, looking at revenues and expenditures. Likewise, we've seen expenditures growing at a faster clip than revenues. Reserve levels, although adequate, I think, could be stronger, particularly in light of what's coming in terms of capital investment. I know there's an emergency situation that has created a capital need. And as the town manager just said, you have a certain amount of reserves that you can spend to cover those expenses. But more than likely, whether it's for this emergency project or other projects that we know are out there, there's going to need to be a borrowing at some point. And we really are limited through some of the more obvious borrowing avenues to participate without current audits. So that really is important. And generating those reserves to keep these projects moving while you're waiting for the audits to catch up, which means when you're able to go and borrow money will become more and more important. So we've also made a recommendation on the water and sewer side to consider raising revenue, increasing rates, if you will. Real quick, let me touch on this. On the general fund tax rate, this is a revaluation year. Significant growth in tax base across the county. For the town, your real property tax base has grown from about 127 million to 213 million. That came from the Commissioner of Revenue, and that's about a 67% increase. And pretty indicative of what the county saw countywide. It might have been a little lower than that across the county, but in the low to mid 60%. So a significant increase in real property values across the county. And in setting a budget with a revaluation, you're required to acknowledge what that revenue neutral rate would be. And that is essentially what tax rate for the town, what real property tax rate for, in this case, FY26 would generate the same amount of real property tax revenue as you received in FY25. And so that's what the next couple of slides are going to cover. So we go to the next slide. This sets up side by side the assessed value at the top, tax year 24 versus tax year 25, right? So that's the 127 million versus the 213 million. FY25, your real property tax levy was 11 cents per hundred, and that generated approximately $140,000 of real property tax revenue. Every penny at that time, based on that assessed value, was generating about $12,700. That's what each penny on the rate was generating. Now we look forward to the recent reassessment and the FY26. We've calculated preliminarily, I think it's a reasonable estimate. I know we're not quite ready for that slide. I know that some interim finance folks have gotten to a very similar number. We've estimated that the revenue neutral rate based on the higher assessed value is about 6.5 cents. And so essentially you'll see on line 3 at the new tax values, a 6.5 cent levy would generate about $140,000, the same as what 11 cents was generating on the old tax levy. Now, a penny for you all is generating about $21,000. All right, now we go to the next slide. This is just trying to give you a little perspective, right? So the FY25 column, that is your 11 cents that you're currently levying in FY25, and it generated 140,000. And it just shows you that the 6.5 pennies at the new valuation is generating 140. And you can see we've just gone from 1 penny down to 20 pennies. What amount of revenue is being generated for different tax levies? 11 cents, 12 cents on down the line. This is starting to set us up for a discussion about if we want to move forward with considering growing some general fund real property tax revenue, what's the right tax rate to set? We know we've got to acknowledge the revenue neutral rate of 6.58, but then it's at that point it is up to town council to set a new rate at whatever level you all feel is necessary and appropriate. Go to the next slide. The next slide. There we go. Thank you. One of the things that we discussed in our previous conversations was trying to grow general fund revenue by 10 or 20%. And keep in mind, it's not just the tax rate. You could consider a meals tax adjustment or something else to generate revenue. This is for the purposes of what would it take for the real property tax rate to generate another 10% worth of revenue in the general fund. And as you look at that header that says FY26 budget 10% growth, we're essentially looking to add 10% to the FY24 tax year. That would be about $150,000. If you were to hold the tax rate at 11 pennies, your tax rate is now 11 pennies. If you were to hold it at 11 pennies, you would generate about another $94,000 worth of revenue. To get to a true 10% growth, we would need about another $55,000 worth of revenue to get there. That would be another 2.6 pennies. So at the very bottom of that, based on this methodology, and again, I think it's sound methodology used with the information we have, the new tax rate would need to be around 13.6 cents to generate that level of growth, again, approximately 10% in the general fund. And the idea there, again, would be to better position the general fund for reserve levels, better position you all to deal with some unexpected emergencies and cash flow requirements, particularly as you're waiting for the ability to borrow if that's being hampered by the being behind on audits. And then on the right-hand side of the column, it's a very similar process, just the same methodology. How is it that we might consider setting the tax rate to generate a 20% growth in revenue in that fund, in the general fund, and it would be the equivalent of about 20.6 pennies. Neither of these are insignificant, obviously, right? A revenue neutral rate is 6.5. We know holding the rate at 11 is going to generate approximately another $95,000 for the town, and then anything above that will be adding about $21,000 per penny. So just an example of how you might begin to think about the tax rate. And I believe well, maybe on the next slide, what's being proposed, not proposed, but advertised. The proposed budget, 13 cent, I guess, maybe, I don't know that you would call that, India, as a minimum recommendation or advertised, however, I believe up to 20 cents. Now, the advertising establishes a max. It does not establish what you will adopt, but going through the advertisement, you can't go higher than that. You can go lower. To go higher than that, you'd have to re-advertise, and there's a process. So 13 cents with a consideration of going higher up to as much as 20 cents to get us to that target of 20% growth in the revenues. Meal tax at 7%. And then very similarly on the water and sewer. And again, remember what's driving the potential for water and sewer rates is to get operations back in balance, operating revenues versus operating expenses, the ability to generate some additional reserves in the water and sewer fund, and to begin to position you all for what's likely to be some additional capital investment, whether it's cash funded or debt funded. That water and sewer fund's going to need additional revenue. 20% sort of takes care of operations to the best of our estimates. The capital cost that's coming over the next 2, 3, 4 years will likely require additional adjustments. So I think what's been advertised is a 20% increase on both water and sewer rates, no change on personal property, and I think you all know the details surrounding refuse.
Excuse me. Can you go back to that slide, please? On the very top line, does that say RE tax rate of 0.13 cents?
It does, and I think what it's intended to be is 13 cents a hundred.
But 0.13 is not the same as 13 cents.
It's 13 cents. That may be a clerical, but
Please
it
fix
is
that.
13 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah, it is not a fraction of a penny.
Thank you.
It is 13 pennies, 13 cents per 100. So happy to answer any questions. I know there'll be additional meetings and maybe some conversations. In talking with staff, I think staff has tried to maintain maximum flexibility in the rates that have been published or put out there. And there's time for you all to have those discussions and get to a place where you're comfortable with each of these rates. Okay.
Thank you. All right, now I'll pick back up. And just for clarification, we have not advertised or published anything yet. We are having that conversation with you at council tonight and requesting that moving forward. All right, so that's the proposed fiscal year 2026, about 3.5. That's expenditures all funds. 2026 budget at a glance. From general fund, sewer, water, capital projects, events and activities fund. You have your total expenditures and expenses all fund there, as well as the expenses supported by transfers out from the general fund. To touch on the American Rescue Plan Act, as you remember last year, we had to allocate and spend those funds, and we obviously have to report on those as we plan to kind of step down from that ARPA funding that has been available over the last several years to kind of help post-pandemic recovery. All of that funding has been allocated and spent. And just a highlight there of some of the projects that were funded through ARPA funding, which were various water and sewer projects, well abandonment, financial management systems, town hall rehabilitation, and website update. Part of our budget priorities are to fund for core services and capital infrastructure needs. As Ted mentioned, we've obviously been prioritizing and focusing on this with council throughout the last couple of years through our strategic planning processes. As far as this budget, in terms of proposed staffing changes, we have been working through various department head meetings over the last several months, starting with the police department. Last year, we restructured to have 2 part-time patrol officer positions, proposing 1 full-time officer back to the 2024 staffing levels, and then establishing a customer service representative, a deputy clerk position, to be able to assist with some of the continuing questions and customer service related questions in the front office. Market alignment. The past several years, the police department has requested the hazardous pay LEO benefits. We are one of the few localities as it relates to police departments without that. So that is included in here. That's about a $27,000 increase for the PD for that hazardous duty benefit, added benefit to their retirement. Overall, because it is of the VRS item, it does have impacts on our overall VRS item. That's about a $55,000 impact overall to the organization. That would require you all to pass a resolution to add that benefit to the police department, which is also a recruitment and retention tool. In terms of other market alignments, a 2% COLA for staff. Last year we did 3. We're not in a position to do that yet. Just as comparison, other localities are looking anywhere between 3 to 4. So we are a bit under that. But given our other emergencies, I think that is a reasonable reduction for support our staff. We're also compliant with the mandated minimum wage. That is a state mandate. General fund budget impacts there we have on our revenues, the bank stock that's projected. That is, again, our top revenue. Our meals tax, a slight reduction there, just based on some trends and where we think things may happen in the market this year. Real estate tax projection, and that is at the 13 cents. The cigarette tax is projected at the same. We cut the intergovernmental service agreement projection in half, simply because there are uncertainty and some changes at the federal level. We are seeing an uptick with Fort Walker, and we will be closing out on our first project with them shortly in the coming weeks. On the expenditure side, healthcare increases. Obviously, our county provides those healthcare benefits on our behalf, but in that pool, there's been a 10% increase this year, so this absorbs that. And then again, the audit services that I mentioned a bit earlier. Administration, the proposed budget, $331,000. That includes funding for town council, town manager, town attorneys. This continues information technology and security for town operations and continues contingency for emergencies. Finance, there's a bit of an increase there that does budget for those 2 audits, continues pre-audit services due to complete those past 2 audits, increases in printing and supplies related to audits, and increases in computer license support as we are still supporting Keystone, BAI, and Southern. Next fiscal year, we will look to just exclusively be on Southern, so we can look to see a reduction there. In the public safety, the total $206,000 there includes hazardous duty benefit enhancement for the police department. That's about, again, the $26,000 impact. That is their top priority in budget request, and that increases the part-time officer to full-time officer for day-to-day operations, and so that the chief has some backup and support. Bowling Green Volunteer Fire Department, we receive a $15,000 pass-through grant, but we do work with them to ensure the grant compliance there, so I wanted to make sure we included that. Public Works and Utilities and Development, about $404,000. There are some increases in vehicle maintenance since the town no longer has a maintenance worker on staff specifically for vehicle maintenance. That we've seen increases there. Just like I think most of us have seen some increases and even on our own vehicle repair budgets. Increases in electricity and streetlights, equipment and supplies, and then maintenance for town hall repairs. As this building ages, we see some increases there as well. Our 2020 proposed budget, here's the expenditures, about 1.4. The total transfers out to other funds included there, for the total transfers out in funds expenditures of about 1.7. In terms of the transfers out, we do transfer out to the capital projects fund, the events fund, the sewer fund, to still support the sewer. Enterprise funds, moving on to water. The proposed budget, $667,000. Some of these costs are increased, particularly through the VDH consent order requirements, additional testing and reporting requirements, increases in repairs and maintenance, increases contingency fund for emergencies that many of us have experienced recently, and then establishes a capital infrastructure fee. This also does include the increases for the management of our water and sewer systems as well. Under sewer fund, moving on. About $1 million there, increases in repairs and maintenance. As we mentioned, as it relates to the drying beds, the sludge costs alone.
Excuse me, Council.
Page 16, under general fund transfers, events and activities, it says 14, not 34. 14.5.
That's the transfer out.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no worries. The sludge costs total about $224,000 to date, $225,000 to date for sludge removal at our plant due to those failing drying beds. We are establishing a contingency, a larger contingency for sewer emergencies, about $75,000, and establishes capital infrastructure fee. As we mentioned, enterprise budget impact, increased repairs and maintenance. We've had unplanned emergency sewer repairs, both on Main Street and Courthouse Lane, which is currently closed at the moment. Increases in the sludge removal costs. There are increased sludge removal costs, particularly on Main Street as it relates to that repair, and obviously sewer removal costs at the plant as well. And there are also testing and chemical costs that have increased across the board. I think we mentioned last meeting that we'll have to begin to plan for PFAS testing as well moving forward. That's the total for our enterprise funds summary. Enterprise funds total, about 1.7. Here's a chart of our proposed utility rate this year with a 20% increase. I'm on both. And this is the proposed infrastructure fee increase as well. There's some comparable charts in here on water and sewer monthly costs just for comparison at some other localities. As you can see, we're one of the lowest in the region. There are some other localities there just for you all to take a look at. Same thing as it relates to the tax rate moving forward. Comparison to Ashland, Caroline, Colonial Beach, Gordonsville, Hanover, King George, Spotsylvania, Tappahannock, Warsaw. Our meals tax rate, they're in a line. If we are considering an increase up to 7, that would put us probably one of the highest. So that's something to consider. Personal property tax rates there as well for comparison. And I'll move on to the events and activities fund. That includes the events and activities budget total of the 34.5. That includes the Harvest Festival, Music on the Green, the parade, and the town hall activities.
Excuse me, Miss India, going back to the water. In the water bill, The trash service is included in that. Didn't we have a decrease there with our new contract?
We are anticipating a decrease there, yes. We don't have that final number yet because we haven't finished the contract and negotiations, but we will.
But it is hoped for.
Yes.
Thank you.
Moving on to capital improvement fund. Obviously, this serves as an outline for large-scale capital expenditures. It serves as a plan. No expenditures are guaranteed to occur if we're not able to pay for them within the operating budget. I've had to extend this back. It's supposed to be a look forward 5 years from 26 moving forward, but I rolled it back so that we could take a look at 25 because some of the emergencies that we may have to incur this year. Looking out for our general fund supported projects, Town Hall Rehabilitation Phase 2, Public Works staff has indicated to me that this floor desperately needs to be replaced here in Town Hall in the ballroom. We've always planned for the replacement and the revitalization of our park, but that's out in 2028. We're still looking at possibly obtain some grants for that. And we think we will have to replace a police patrol vehicle by 2027. Taking a look at the water fund, the well replacements, modification, and radionuclide treatment in 2026, that's about $7 million. We are obviously pursuing a grant for that. Also believe we'll have to replace our trucks in our water fund in 27 and 28 at about $45,000 each. Taking a look, moving on to sewer. The Main Street sewer repair, we ballparked that last year at about 1.5. The courthouse lane repair, that's about 175 this year. And then taking a look in 2026, we need to plan for generator lift stations, as I mentioned at our last meeting, at the Meadows, Oak Ridge, and Lacey Lane. Those costs are associated there. And then the wastewater treatment plant upgrade, and that's the sludge management, sludge press, which is estimated about $500,000 that we are pursuing a grant for. And then in the future, equalization basin out in 2020 or in 2030. And so that concludes the CIP. For our total enterprise fund supported projects at about 11.9 for the total CIP at just under 19.5. Moving on to the next slide. And in summary, this will include the budget summary. This is typically what we will see in a budget ad or posted in a notice, just the roll up there for everything I've just gone over. Next slide. Budget timeline, I provided estimates to council on April 1st. Today, we are at the budget proposal where we will hopefully set tax rates for advertisement and then request the public hearing for the non-equalization rate, the budget public hearing, the utility rates on May 22nd, which is a Thursday. And then we will have to have the utility rates public hearing, the final utility rates public hearing on June 5th for adoption on June 5th as well. And the next step slide kind of outlines the next steps that we require, which includes recommending that town council move to set the public hearing for May 22nd and advertise for a real estate rate at the 20 cents in line with our targets that we've been working with Davenport on, and then have the public hearing request, as I just mentioned. And then I'll move forward with posting those notice requirements for the public hearing, for the non-equalization rate, the meals tax, water, sewer, capital infrastructure fee, and then ensure that those notices go out in those respective dates to align with our statutory requirements. And that concludes my presentation, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you all may have.
Are there questions from council?
And I know about half of you had the opportunity to meet with Ted from Davenport, and I apologize with the sewer emergencies. We weren't able to get the other half of you to meet with him in our kind of 2x2s to talk about some of these things at a high level. It's been a very condensed budget season, so I appreciate you all's patience as we work through this process.
So tonight,
Go ahead.
we need to agree on a tax rate for real estate, meals tax, and personal property.
So I'm not requesting any change on the personal property, but if you all want to consider that a higher rate than you have, but those
three things.
and the utilities as well.
And so you're proposing no increase in personal property. You're asking, this shows us from 6 to 7% on meals tax.
Yes,
And
to
then,
advertise.
and then to advertise on real estate, what is it?
This budget assumes the 13 cents, 13 pennies. But based on the conversations that we've had with Ted and things that are moving in, because the previous USDA project was never budgeted for, I think that you all should consider advertising at the 20, and then between now and then, if we need to work our way back. But as we're still working to get some of the information on these sewer emergencies, I think giving ourselves more flexibility is probably the most prudent and fiscally responsible thing to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council? Well, at this time, I would like to ask council if they would like to move on this proposed budget presentation.
I
Mr.
have one
Webb?
question. So if we advertise the rate and we want to reduce that, we have the ability to, but we can't.
Correct, but we
Raise
can't
it.
raise it. So that's why it was recommended that we advertise at a higher rate. And if we want to go to that higher rate, we can do it in a stepstone type fashion.
And then the water and sewer rates, what were we proposing on those?
It is a 20% increase. You can pull that slide. Yep, there you go.
The combination of water and sewer would take us to what per month? Do you know?
So the proposed on residential in town would be 111.62, the $18 increase. And then on the residential out of town, it'd be 126.17, the $21 increase
And that's
bi-monthly.
That's bi-monthly.
Correct.
And so then how does that, and I thought I saw a comparison, but how does that compare to what the county rate is?
The county rate is 122.83. So we would still be a bit below that. For in-town residents, we would be still what, $11 below that? Can't go in between.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions from council? There's your comparison chart.
And I will say I spoke with the county administrator yesterday out in the street. They passed, I guess, a resolution several years ago to have a 5% increase every year for 5 years so that there wouldn't be this back and forth and so that they can plan appropriately for their capital needs as well. So whatever that is now, it's going to be 5% on top of that. So as a comparison.
In the past, I mean, I'm just thinking back in years, we've never really tried to keep up every year a little increase. We waited a bunch of years, then we overwhelmed people. And in fact, on the water and sewers, didn't USDA kind of say we had to go up to apply and get that grant or loan?
Yes.
How much? 30, okay.
That was in fiscal 21. They did that, and then it was supposed to be 10% 3 years in a row. COVID hit, so it was 15 in 2 years. They skipped 1 year.
I personally feel that smaller incremental increases, there's two schools of thought. You can raise it all at once and give everyone sticker shock and listen to the screaming and yelling and belly howling and get it over with. Or we can just incrementally increase it year by year. And it's that on some levels easier for people's budgets to absorb. But again, this is a decision for council, not for the mayor. Go ahead, Mr. Voigt.
Mostly, I think we just need to get this part over with. It's just the advertising part. I'll say in advance, like, you're not going to get me on the 20-cent real estate, but we do have to advertise something. That's certainly going to stir some community discussion if you go high like that. So fine. This is our first time really seeing the budget. So, we really need to digest this whole thing and see what we feel in the meantime. But it is a safer thing to have more options coming back later. Just because I'm not going to want to do that, I'll support the idea.
So are you making a motion? Okay.
So I think that the challenge is, and we discussed this in our meeting with Davenport, the concern is, what Jeff's saying is, when we hit 20%, people see 20%. They're not understanding it's just a max. We can go down. You do that simply because you want to have the ability to do that. It's like catering. You can take away, but you can't add. So at a public hearing, it would be possible to maybe really explain to people why we do this, or whoever has questions, so they understand why we put 20%. Because I'm sure people watching, or whomever, by tomorrow morning, 20%. And that's not exactly what's going to be happening. It's just a number that we want to reach. So communication, understanding would go a long way.
Any other comments or questions? Miss India?
I've got Ted here, and maybe I might be putting him on the spot, but I know he talked a little bit about why we wanted those 20% targets, and just big picture things that, people often ask me as a manager, well, what keeps you up at night? Well, if we're out to get this grant to fix our Gross Alpha water issue, that's an estimated $7 million grant. It is a 75-25 match. So we will have to come up with the 25 if we want to fix that. Because we are in a consent order, we don't have many choices in the matter. So we will have to come up with some money there, maybe 1.5, maybe a little bit more. If the USDA project funding gets taken from the federal level, if that project doesn't happen for whatever reason, we're not in complete and total control of that. But if that gets taken, we'll have to find a way to pay and continue to kind of finance what has already been taken out for that portion. And then we have the emergency repairs on Main Street and Courthouse. And then we have cash on hand. And we are also faced with the ARPA money that we've been relying on now for the last 4 years gone. So in a perfect storm of events, when you have emergencies, deferred maintenance, deferred capital costs, your first CIP, I think on paper, where you're able to really visualize what some of these things cost last year, in addition to 4 audits that hadn't been done, you're really in a tough spot to kind of know where you are. But I say that to say, when we're going out to have to borrow in the future, people really won't care about what excuses we have for not having it. They'll just say you won't have it and potentially tell us to kick sand. So if we want to be able to be in a place to fix some of these problems, we do have to have some funding to be able to prove that we can do that and cash flow those things. And so part of us working with Davenport is so that we could be strategic about that, do that in a way that is fiscally responsible, but also not in a way where we are ignoring these issues that are knocking at our door rapidly. And so if I'm missing anything, I'll be happy to let.
No, I think that's good space.
All right, thanks.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jim.
If you go for the 20%, X% on various things, food, real estate, et cetera, and you decide to make it palatable to the community to do a stepwise fashion, how many steps are reasonable? I mean, one step would get everything done all at once, but if you want to do stepwise, how long reasonably financially smart would it be?
I'll ask Ted to come up and speak a little bit to that, but I think there's 2 parts. So there's the general fund, and then there's our enterprise funds. So we could, I think, look at a more stepped approach there, but I also think, given that we do have reassessments happen every 4 years, so in this instance, you do have some recent reassessment information, so you can kind of see where, if you go back to that chart, where on that from equalization rate to the 20 cents, what the town could kind of, net to create kind of an immediate reserves. If we have another sewer collapse and we can't get funding from any state funding or any bank funding, then I'm not sure what we're supposed to do. And so that's kind of the reality of where we are. So.
Let me ask real quick. Council had approved CCTV scanning yearly. Is that in the budget? Did you put that in the budget?
That is part of the contingency funding that we included, but we will be creating a plan to do that on a more regular fashion, yes.
And then part of that, are we setting in the budget money aside to, over and above these emergencies, to start replacing a section of pipe at a time so that we can avoid this situation in the future?
That is where we would like to get to. Absolutely.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to answer the question that was posed. We're working a little bit blind, right, without the 23 and 24 audit in terms of where did we really start the year and finish the year. But I think the sooner you're able to put some increases in place, the better. Do you have to do it all at once? I don't think so, but what's the right sequence or cadence of generating those revenues? I guess I can only say with comfort, sooner is better. But how long can you stretch it out? As the manager said, it's going to depend on what those interim years of financial audits say, and then the ability to deal with the unexpected without reserves, or with lower reserves, your options are limited. And you've not been in a mode as a local government where you've had to do annual borrowings for cash flow. That is something that some local governments do in Virginia. They take out a tax anticipation note to cash flow through the year. But again, that can be a real challenge without having audits. And normally we go to banks to do that, and they do lend on that. But without audits, I don't know whether there'd be much appetite. So it's a difficult situation. I certainly understand that.
Any questions for Ted? Yes, Mr. Lloyd? Oh, a question in general? Thank you, Ted.
Going back to my last comment, when I was talking 20, I wasn't talking about the enterprise fund increase. I was talking about the 20-cent real estate. When it comes to the enterprise rates, the problem we have is that they haven't been self-sustaining. We keep having to subsidize them. So when it comes to a service with rates, I have a hard time arguing against increases to cover the operation of them. So that's just going to be what it's going to have to be for the most part. But back on the real estate side, again, that 20-cent thing, that's going to be kind of hard to be palatable. But advertising high, digesting this to see what maybe equilibrium point we can get to later, is probably the way to go. But I did want to mention, because I was thinking about it, with this recent reassessment, like all the property, like he was saying, went up 60 some percent, that drastically increased the value of each penny of increasing that. And so, like, historically, the town has not touched real estate in a long time. Not when I was first on there. Do you by chance remember any time in the past 15 years that happened?
I can't give you any specifics. We've never been on top of steady increases like we should have been. And that's
it didn't have as much value back then.
Right. Well, yeah, but
to do it.
That's why we're in the position we're in today.
Right.
And there's I don't mean to interrupt you, but there, just for everybody listening at home, there's no fluff in this budget at all. I mean, you think about the only thing that's really like flashy is $34,000 for activities. But this is a responsible budget, and there's no fluff in it at all. So
Quite honestly, depending upon how quickly or how long it takes to fix what's going on Main Street, we may not have to spend the 34,000 because it could impact us having Harvest Festival. Go ahead, Mr. Eggman.
I know we're putting money back to be able to CTV these other sewer lines that we don't know. But is it really, would it not be more advantageous to come up with the money right now and do it? Because there might be some lines out there that could be sleeved, which would cut the cost down and repairing those right now by half, basically. So maybe now those streets might come up in the next 2 weeks. But I mean, if some of them are, yeah, knock on wood, but if some of them are not that bad and they could be re-sleeved right away to keep it from collapsing, we're not gonna have to come up with $1.5 million to fix 520 feet of street, maybe going down Lafayette Avenue or something like that. Maybe it only costs us 250,000. Maybe now is the time that we need to do all that, come up with the money, camera everything, see where we're at, and make sure we don't have no other caverns in the road and get it fixed. This is my opinion. I think it would save the town a lot of money.
Further thoughts?
Mayor,
Yes,
if I may,
yes, ma'am.
I think to answer a question I think Mr. Boyd had earlier, it looked like during the pandemic, the town did have a 13-cent rate and then dropped it back to 11 during the pandemic, and it's been at 11 ever since. So it looks like at least maybe the last time, and I think looking at some of Mr. Masters' previous files, the last time it was maybe touched was in 2016. And I think that was to get to the 11 or maybe the 13. And then the pandemic dropped it back down and we've been flat at 11 ever since. And then the cost of everything pretty much post-pandemic has continued to rise. And I internally do get emails from some of our vendors and information from some of our vendors as it relates to tariff impacts on some of our materials, particularly in the Public Works Department. So that is just a very real consideration.
Mr. Stork?
Well, for the purpose of go ahead and setting this public hearing so we can do this, I make a motion that we advertise with the rates that our staff has suggested. Do I need to state those?
At the 20?
At the 20.
Okay.
So I have a motion from Councilman Stork. I have a second from Councilwoman Davis. Is there any further discussion from council? I will take a roll call for this vote. Mr. Hageman,
Yes.
Mr. Stork,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Coyle,
Yes.
Dr. Chenault,
Yes.
Mr. Webb,
Yes.
Mr. Voigt,
Yes.
Ms. Davis.
Yes.
Motion carries unanimously. We have no informational items that I know of.
Madam Mayor, we've got
Oh, we do?
two more things we need you to do there.
Go for it.
Just to set the public hearing request for May 2nd. We need you all to do that too.
Oh.
May 22nd, sorry.
May, that's what I was gonna say, the 22nd. So at what time?
So the non-equalization rate meeting has to be at a different time than the public hearing. So right there on the board, it says 4 p.m. for the non-equalization public hearing, and then 5 p.m. for the public budget hearing. And then the utilities public hearing will be at 5 p.m. as well.
2 at 5, 1 at 4. Is it 3 separate motions, Mr. Gore?
You can do it in one. As proposed.
So I'll need them.
Any particular reason we're going even earlier than our current meeting times?
Because it can't be at our current meeting time. If you would like to do it after, but if that's the case, you should probably then, I'll let Jeff touch on that.
Well, I mean stagger everything later.
Yeah, you could do it another day, the prior day, but if you want to do it, so the state code, since you're not equalizing, you have to have a separate public hearing just for that fact. And it cannot be under the state code at the same time as the budget hearing. So it doesn't say it can't be the same day, it can't be the same time. So it could be the prior day, it could be after.
I get that and everything. I'm just like, so
So
that
what
day
you're
starts
asking,
at 5. You know, normally our days start at 5, so That's all I'm saying. It's like,
What, are you asking that we start
You
at
could-
5 and then go to 6 for the next one?
I was asking about the familiarity of
Yeah,
it.
you could do that.
Just
That would be up to council.
Just do it the way it is. I was just
You could
asking.
do 5 and 5:30. That way you're not waiting around for 40 minutes.
So I need a motion.
I'll make the motion to have these meetings as scheduled, written on the board and on our paper in front of us for these hearings.
I have a motion from Councilman Hageman. Is there a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Davis. Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. Motion carries unanimously. Any other items, Ms. Town Manager?
No, ma'am.
Okay, we have no informational items. At this time, I will reopen the floor for public comment. You have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and your address. You will address the chair. We cannot respond to you as our rules do not allow for that, but we are listening. Is anyone out there to speak for public comment? Hello, Ms. Watts.
Whitney Watts, 165 South Main Street, and most of you know me, some of you know me pretty well, and longtime town proponent, understand aging infrastructure very well, and generally can tolerate increases for things that I know need to be paid. But I would like to echo the comments that Angela made at the beginning of the meeting. I am very disheartened with the lack of communication that has gone out to the public about the various facets of all the problems, which, as I stated, I understand are coming up fast and are a lot to deal with. On top of that, I recently encountered, I had a staff encounter here at the town hall office. I had been trying desperately, as someone who works a professional job, I cannot come to the town office at leisure. I had tried multiple times to reach the town staff by phone unsuccessfully with no returned voicemails over a longer period of time. I remedied, I thought, through the mail, the situation I was dealing with, and when that turned out not to be the case, I came to the town office a couple Fridays ago, and the level of customer service that I received was abysmal, to put it mildly. I was, quite frankly, so angry when I left that day that I could have blown up a lot of things on social media and made a lot of stir for people that I care a whole lot about that are sitting at this table. And I didn't do that because I care about the town and I love the town, but I hope I never encounter what I encountered that day in this office again, particularly when I was coming to resolve an issue and not create one. So I just would appreciate any public communication up to and including packets available for people attending, legible size fonts for things. There's nothing online. There's no available agendas, minutes, packets. It's really, really hard to follow along with what's going on. It just so happened that this occurred earlier in April, the couple days leading up to the special called meeting. So I went on a search to find the information for the special called meeting. And the only place I could locate that was on the pin board right outside of the office here. And in 2025, that is generally not the place people are looking for town notice, particularly people that you want to champion and be behind you and not up here complaining about the price of everything. So I would just encourage you all to consider maybe reestablishing some prior online availability of things and having staff that are willing to talk to customers when they do come to the town office. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Watts. Are there any other public comments to be made? At this time, I will close public comments. We will move on to our second commissioner member comment. Before we go to closed session, Ms. Davis.
I would just like to thank India for getting this budget out. I don't know how she does everything, so thank you so much.
Mr. Voigt, Mr. Webb, Dr. Chenault, Vice Mayor Coyle, Mr. Stork, Mr. Hageman. This time I'll close member comment. I would like to request of council a motion to go to closed session.
Do it for you.
Mr. Voigt,
I move to go into closed session pursuant to Virginia Code 2.2-3711A1 for discussion of performance of specific public officers to complete the performance evaluation of the town manager.
I'll second it.
I have a motion by Councilman Voigt, a second by Councilman Hageman. Any discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. And motion carries. We will go to closed session and let's take a 5-minute recess real quick. Go ahead, Mr. Stork.
I move that we come out of closed session.
I'll second that.
I have a motion from Councilman Stork, a second from Councilman Hageman. Any further discussion? I will certify roll call. Ms. Davis,
I certify.
Mr. Voigt,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Webb,
Certify.
Dr. Chenault,
To certify.
Vice Mayor Coyle,
Certify.
Mr. Stork,
I certify.
Mr. Hageman.
I certify.
So moved. Is there any other business before this council tonight? I would like to real quick mention two things because I don't know how to slide these into the meeting. When those letters went out by accident, by mistake earlier, something that was brought to my attention by our former clerk of court was the tax amount that was on there was the exact same tax amount as was charged in December. And his question was, if I was allegedly paying late, which I am not, but if I were, why is there no penalty and interest reflected on this bill? Is that something we not charge? And if that is the case, why don't we charge it?
Was that on a utility or tax?
No, that was on the real estate tax bill. Anybody that got a bill, it said the same thing. There was no,
I would have thought we do. I mean, the county charges a.
but it was not reflected on any of those delinquency notices. So that's my question. Do we have a penalty and interest? Do you know the answer to that, town manager?
There is a penalty and interest fee that should be assessed. I would have to go back and look at the letter to see specifically. But without that staff person who was here, who would have been responsible for their letters, it would be difficult to get an answer to that at this time.
But we do allegedly charge penalty and interest.
We are authorized to do that, yes. And under normal circumstances, we do.
Okay, just wanted that as a point of clarification. Go ahead, Mr. Webb.
Which that kind of reminds me, I did have someone stop me the other day and just wanted to know if we were still sending out tax bills for the special tax district, because someone had mentioned to them that they had not received a special tax district bill in some time. Just thought I'd pass that along, so we might need to look into it.
Yeah, I'm happy if you want to pass them along. I do know in investigating this issue a little bit, there were some parcels that were taken off at a point in time. We're still looking through that. We were looking through that with Davenport and looking at that kind of total special tax district. And we might even, I think, chatted with the attorney about that at some point. But with the other emergencies, some of those things get further down the list. But if you'd be happy to give me their information, I'll cross-reference to see if they're one of those parcels that maybe have fallen off.
Any other business from council? I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn at this time.
So moved.
I have a,
Second.
okay, all in favor, raise your right hands. Motion carries unanimously. The town council meeting of Bowling Green is now closed.